Can you give us a sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
The tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. And, you know, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
so that's not clarity.
No, I think that they say that. You know, it sounds good to say. But for years, the globalists, the big globalists, have been ripping off the United States. They've been taking money away from the United States.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
And that was the soundbite that set off a global sell-off in stocks. President Trump talking with me about tariffs on Sunday morning futures. His 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum taking effect overnight. They are in effect right now. The European Union has responded with retaliatory tariffs on $28 billion worth of U.S. exports beginning April 1. President Trump's tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, are expected on April 2nd. Stocks are red across the board so far this year as markets react to the uncertainty around tariffs and the threat of tariffs. The president told top CEOs yesterday at the Business Roundtable that tariffs will go higher, reiterating what he told me on Sunday.
The tariffs are having a tremendously positive impact. They will have, and they are having. We have car companies that are not building in Mexico now. They're building in the United States. They'd take away our jobs. They'd close up places in Michigan and all over the country, and they'd build them in Mexico. In many cases, they were owned by China. There is a good spirit. There's a renewed spirit. They don't want to pay 25% or whatever it may be. It may go up higher. The higher it goes, the more likely it is they're going to build. And ultimately, the biggest win is not the tariff. The biggest win is if they move into our country and produce jobs. But the tariffs are going to be throwing off a lot of money to this country. And we've been ripped off for years by other countries, many, many decades.
Joining me now in a Fox Business exclusive is the CEO of Goldman Sachs, David Solomon. David, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
It's good to see you, Maria. Thank you very much for having me from Washington. Of
course. And you were at the Business Roundtable yesterday. Several major banks revising their economic forecast in the midst of this tariff uncertainty, including Goldman Sachs economists, by the way. What can you tell us in terms of your reaction and the impact of tariffs on the economy and your business?
Well, I was at the Business Roundtable yesterday, and I'd start, Maria, by just observing that one of the things that I do like is that the president is engaged with the business community. Yeah. The administration is engaged with the business community. And that's a different experience than what we've had over the course of the last 4 years. I'd also observe, his sense of optimism in the engagement yesterday at the BRT. I think the business community understands what the president is trying to do with tariffs. Now, the business community is always going to want lower tariffs everywhere in the world. At the moment, there's some uncertainty. The market's digesting that, but we're going to have to watch and see how this all plays out.
Yeah, and you've got other things within the president's agenda that occurs to me to be very positive for your company, Goldman Sachs, as well as corporate America in general. I'm talking about the deregulation. Cutting regulations is a huge thing, and that's going to have a big impact, the extension of the tax cuts. So I want to get your sense on the macro story right now, David, because initially President Trump did not want to make a prediction. You heard him in that soundbite when I spoke with him on Sunday. That caused this massive sell-off in stocks. Yesterday, he did say, I don't see a recession coming. How would you assess the backdrop in terms of animal spirits? Do you see M&A and IPOs picking up for you at Goldman? Are things that used to be on the shelf now coming off the shelf, if you will?
There's no question that activity levels are slightly better than they've been over the course of the last 24 months, but there's still an enormous amount of pent-up demand, Maria, both for capital markets activity and M&A activity. I would say at this moment, the level of uncertainty is a little bit higher, and that has kept some things on the sideline, some possible transactions on the sideline. But the overall level of dialogue as people are thinking strategically about where they want to drive their businesses is certainly increasing. I agree with you. There's potential, especially if we got more specific actions on the regulatory front to unleash more animal spirits. I think that's something we'd all like to see. And my expectation is you will see as you get through the year a pickup in activity across both the capital markets and M&A.
I mean, you've had alternative investments as a key focus area at Goldman, and I want to get your take about the investment climate right now. I understand that there's some uncertainty around these tariffs, but do you think investors are looking longer term right now to try to look beyond this period of what President Trump would call a disruption, temporary?
Well, there are lots of things going on in the economy that are super interesting, Maria, and certainly can create enormous headwinds for growth. I think what's going on with AI technology and the continued growth in compute is an area that's particularly interesting. There's an awful lot of innovation in the economy broadly. And when you talk about private capital and private capital investors, they are stewarding capital for long periods of time. They look out over cycles. They pick great companies that can grow regardless of environment. They obviously have to deal with the macro environment in the short term, but I think there continues to be an incredibly attractive set of opportunities to invest and grow and steward capital.
Yeah, and that's why I want to check in on that business, because you've got the recurring fee revenue and asset wealth management, and that's real important. And I know that you've been building that business along with the bread and butter of capital markets business at Goldman.
Well, the firm has, as you point out, the firm has two significant businesses. Our global banking and markets franchise, which is a leading franchise. It's what the firm has always been known for. It's the business that serves our clients broadly around the world. And in addition, we have an asset and wealth management platform that we've been very focused on growing. We've communicated to the market that we expect to be able to grow the durable revenue in that business, the management fees in that business, high single digit. We've been doing better than that. We supervise over $3 trillion of assets, close to $3.2 trillion of assets in that business. And we have a very unique global platform that spans the full range of asset management activities, whether it's from liquidity all the way through to a very, very broad alternatives platform. So we're excited about that business. We've got great client partnerships in that business, and it really is an engine that can allow the firm to continue to grow and serve our clients.
Yeah, and you've got a great vantage point to tell us how the activity looks. I'm going to get to small business in a moment because I know you're doing lots there. But if you were to look out to 2025, going into 2026, do you believe the capital markets business will see activity heightened in the face of this deregulatory action to come? IPOs, are you expecting an increase this year?
I am expecting an increase this year, although there's no question, Maria, that if the level of uncertainty continues to rise, it will have an effect on that activity. But there's no question that IPOs have been muted over the course of the last couple of years. The pipeline is larger, and we do expect an increase this year.
And that goes back to policy. It seems to me that what was going on at the FTC, trying to stop deals, had a real impact. President Trump is changing that. I know Goldman Sachs is also bringing 60 small businesses from rural America to Washington this week to give Congress their message of growth. Goldman's 10,000 Small Businesses Voices survey found 74% of small business owners have plans to grow, with 45% expecting to create new jobs this year. I want to get your take on what you need to see in the way of policy to keep that going. I spoke with the Small Business Administrator, Kelly Loeffler, on this program last week, and she told us about changes she's making and how the Trump administration is trying to support small business. Watch this.
Maria, I can tell you first here on Fox Business that next week we're rolling out our Made in America initiative at the SBA. Most manufacturers in this country are small businesses, and we know that manufacturing in America is disproportionately impacted by excessive regulation. And so we have this opportunity once in a generation to get behind President Trump's incredible agenda to bring strength back to American industry and protect the American worker. That means strengthening our heartland that has been hollowed out by president after president who has not had the guts to fight for American industry. There is no stronger supporter of small business than President Trump.
David, talk to us about the big challenges facing small business. What do you want to see to actually increase activity here out of policy?
Sure, and I appreciate it, Maria, and obviously I appreciate your highlighting the 10,000 Small Business Program, which now over the last 15 years has brought 16,000 businesses through the program, and we've seen, a pickup both in hiring and growth and business activity from these small businesses. And as you highlight, these small businesses are so important to job creation in the United States. 65% of all the new jobs in the United States come from small businesses. So our ability to uplift these small businesses and allow them to really help drive the economy is super important to all of us. The 10,000 Small Business Voices program brings these small businesses to Washington to talk about things that they need to help continue that growth trajectory. And I would point to three things, Maria, that these businesses are saying universally that they're focused on. One, obviously, is this push toward less regulation. When you think about regulatory issues and the burden it places on small businesses, for these small businesses, very big issue. Small business owner yesterday highlighted to me that a $500 fine for their business because of a small regulatory violation is a very, very meaningful thing.
Yeah.
And so less regulatory burden for sure is one. The second is an ability to access affordable capital and to do it in a way that is simpler and more streamlined. So can we make the SBA and other capital programs that provide access to these small businesses and also the community banking system more accessible, more reachable for these small businesses so they can invest and fund growth? And then last, they have to take care of their employees. They need to ensure that they can have access to benefits and an ability, or we create incentives so that there's an ability for these small businesses to take care of their employees, provide them the benefits they need so that they can attract the kind of talent they need to invest and grow these businesses. So these are three areas that came up in almost every conversation.
I love it. All really important points to make. David, when you were in that room yesterday at the roundtable, did you feel like CEO sentiment, CEO confidence was on the rise, or do you think that people are still worried about this tariff uncertainty?
I think CEOs are looking for more policy, certainly broadly. Obviously, you've been focused on trade this morning, and trade is getting a number of headlines. But CEOs are excited about some of the tailwinds you mentioned, like the move to lower regulation. Regulation has been a significant headwind to growth and investment. But in addition, they like, whether it's around trade, obviously tax policy is going to be a big discussion as we move forward, energy policy. The more we can have certainty on the policy agenda as we move forward, the better that's going to support capital investment and growth.
Absolutely. And we're also waiting on certainty and clarity on digital assets regulation. David, what do you want to say about crypto and digital assets as President Trump and the Trump administration say that they want to make America the crypto capital of the world?
Well, I think that the underlying technology that allows for continued digitization of our financial system is important and exciting. I think there are a number of questions that have to be thought through very, very carefully as we put a regulatory structure in place that allows new participants to work with the existing financial system to make this all work effectively for Americans and for people around the world.
So, I mean, we had Cynthia Loomis on the other day, and she said, look, stable coin is one thing, Bitcoin is something else, and if it's a commodity, it should be regulated under the CFTC. If it's a security, under the Securities and Exchange Commission. Do you have enough clarity in terms of who the overseers will be here?
I think that's something that's still developing, Maria. I've looked at the drafts of some of the legislation that's come forward, but this is something that's still developing and something that, as it develops, as an organization, we'll certainly weigh in.
And then there's the Fed. And, of course, I've been reporting on this open slot of Michael Barr. Michael Barr was the vice chairman and bank supervisor at the Federal Reserve. He left 2 weeks ago. And President Trump told me on Sunday that he will appoint someone else for that role. This is a presidential appointment. The Wall Street Journal is reporting this morning that Fed Governor Mickey Bowman, remains the front runner to fill the central bank's vice chair supervision role. Do you see this having a big impact on firms like Goldman and others, given the fact that we've had so much regulation around the major banks, Basel III Endgame, et cetera? Does that change and sort of give more breathing room for financials?
There's a lot to do on the regulatory front in the financial space. You mentioned some of it, Maria. Obviously, capital, Basel III capital, CCAR, GSIB, also ESLR is very, very important. I think it is very important that this seat gets filled very quickly, and the work to move forward on a bunch of these issues can start. I'd be excited to see Mickey Bowman appointed. I think the industry would be excited to see Mickey Bowman appointed. And then that can help the banks move forward to do what the banks should be doing, which is getting capital into the system and help supporting growth in the economy.
Well, that's exactly right. David, give us your view of the world right now. I mean, we've heard a lot about Europe sort of stuck in the mud. The U.S., there's been a lot of optimism. How do you see the macro story globally right now? What can you tell us?
There's change, Maria. I mean, we have a new administration. The United States is the most important economy in the world, and we have a new administration. And as you highlighted when the president was speaking at the BRT yesterday, he highlighted that he's making change. And so we're in a period of change. When there's change, there's uncertainty. It takes a while for people to absorb and adopt. But I continue to be incredibly optimistic about the United States and the direction of travel. We have an incredibly nimble and versatile economy, and I'm sure we'll make progress and move forward.
All right, we'll leave it there. David, great to have you this